What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blitz Fantasy Football. My name is Ryan Lakeland. I'm here with the Dean of Fantasy Football. We are talking wide receiver bust today. If you didn't check out our last episode about the running back bust, go ahead and check that out after this video. But today, we are talking wide receivers. Dean, I want to start off in Green Bay, and let's just put the group, and we'll just bang this out right now, right? Tell me why the Green Bay wide receivers are not going to produce this year.
Yeah, it's just kind of a mesh together. We were just talking about like they're just a group of guys put together. I think they're hoping that Matthew Golden's this wide receiver one that they've been searching for, but no one's really stepped up in that wide receiver room, and it just is nothing to invest in. You don't know who you're drafting. You go to certain teams, that Jamar Chase is wide receiver one, T Higgins is wide receiver two, obviously both effective, right? But for here in the Packers, you just don't know who's going to produce week in and week out. So why invest in that on your draft, especially in those middle rounds where you need to fill out those flex spots or maybe your wide receiver two, whatever it may be. So there's nothing to really rely on or sink your teeth in for this team, and that is just not great for fantasy purposes.
Yeah, and I mean, Matthew Golden's been the hot name of this group, obviously. But
Yeah.
the interesting part about these guys is that all of their underlying stats say they should be better than what they are. Like their separation scores are good, right? They get open well. They have like all these stats that say like these guys should be getting the ball more. They should be better,
Right.
but they just don't. Like the rotations in Green Bay consistently filter through these guys where they're never on the field at the same time. And a lot of people argue, well, that's because these guys aren't true wide receiver ones. I don't think Matthew Golden is to that point where he's there in his development as well. He is not going to be a guy that plays over 65% of snaps like right out of the gate. Like he is slowly going to increase. He's slowly going to get better in Green Bay, but it's not going to be a complete Matthew Golden domination of this receiver room. Matt LaFleur is going to continue to rotate guys. And unless Matthew Golden proves down the stretch that he has production like Devontae Adams in that system, he's not going to be on the field like Devontae Adams. There's no
Mm-hmm.
chance. Like this receiver room is going to continue to rotate because Christian Watson, still a good deep threat. Romeo Dobbs is still incredibly good in the underneath game in the slot. Dontavian Wicks is still underrated as well. They have players that impress me and are good on tape. They just have not consistently stayed on the field. Their snaps never really creep super high, and their target shares are never super high. This offense is all about spreading the ball around, being hyper efficient, and relying on Josh Jacobs on the ground. It is not a wide receiver friendly room in fantasy football. And that's why me and Dean are both avoiding all these receivers in fantasy football right now. Hands off on those guys.
Not touch him.
Let's talk about one of your guys here, Jordan Addison. Why should we avoid him this season?
Yeah, so I mean, listen, he an established wide receiver two on his team, so that's an upside. But unfortunately for Jordan Addison, he is explosive. He's gotten some big time plays where it does bump him up in certain rankings and points wise as well.
Yep.
But the target share just isn't there, and I don't think looking into 2025 it's going to improve, especially you think of the things that are coming out that where you have a returning healthy TJ Hawkinson for a full year. You have an inexperienced quarterback in JJ McCarthy, which, hey, listen, I can eat my words at the end of the season. But last year in the 14-win season, you had an experienced Sam Darnold that got Jordan Addison the ball. Not even a lot, which scares me. It's that target share that he's not getting a lot of targets, especially compared to the wide receiver one on this team, Justin Jefferson, who is the GOAT, one of my top players.
Yeah.
Where Jordan Addison, you're really relying on those big breakaway type plays to get the consistent fantasy points. And for 2025, it's just not looking good for Jordan Addison.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that helped him last season was TJ Hawkinson not being on the field. He needed, TJ Hawkinson to be gone to see an increased target share. And when he was not, on the field without him, it was relying on a few big catches to have massive production in fantasy football. Now, he had some really big weeks down the stretch there that were really nice to see. But I also agree with you in the fact that I don't think JJ McCarthy is going to have as much passing volume as we saw Sam Darnold have last season. I think with this offense, that production's still going to go to Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson will always have that massive target share. Now, spreading the ball around, that's where it's going to be interesting. I wonder if there's going to be regression at the running back position, but they did bring in Jordan Mason to help negate that with Aaron Jones. But the interesting part about Jordan Addison is you're drafting him right behind Xavier Worthy right now in our wide receiver list, and right above Jerry Jeudy and some other players drafted below him right now. Jamison Williams, you have Travis Hunter mixing there, Ted McMillan. Like these are all guys that have, I would say, wide receiver one potential. Can we say that
Mhm.
with Addison? No. And I think when you're going into your draft, if you're drafting a safe player like Addison, who's going to be incredibly volatile, not necessarily have that upside as a wide receiver one, I think you're making a mistake on draft day where he's currently drafted. Go get yourself a wide receiver one potential guy like Xavier Worthy, who did that down the stretch and could be a low end wide receiver one. Jerry Jeudy, who was a wide receiver one last year. Like there are
Mhm.
guys available where he's being drafted that are more consistent and can produce at a higher level. Let's talk about another one of your guys here, Stefon Diggs. Tell us why we should be avoiding him and him on boats this year.
I was gonna say nothing wrong with the boats. He seemed like he was having a good time, but unfortunately for Stephon Diggs, he's coming to a new team. He's coming off an ACL tear, and also he's getting older, 31, right? And he
Yep.
gets to play with a hot new quarterback in Drake May, who I have high hopes for. But what is looking at, especially we were talking about like redrafts, is I'm not sure when this is going to click for Stephon Diggs or if it will ever for this team. You see Mike Vrabel coming over. This is a whole new regime for the Patriots, and they took a chance in trying to get a number one wide receiver in Stephon Diggs. I just don't know how this ACL at the age of 31 is going to hold up if they
Yeah.
expect him to get wide receiver one target shares, to be on the field constantly for Drake May. I think this Patriots receiver room is very close to being kind of Green Bay-ish, if you will, but there's a lot of guys that we see that can have potential to break out. I just don't think it's going to be Stephon Diggs in 2025.
Diggs is such an interesting case because he's priced as a wide receiver 33. He's probably not going to be fully, healthy until middle of
Yeah.
the year, I'd say, coming off that ACL tear, which was late last season. His chemistry with Drake May is going to take a little bit to get going. I am more intrigued to see a rookie like Kyle Williams potentially take over that
Absolutely.
room and the chemistry that they might have. And look, say all you want about Hunter Henry of him not necessarily being the most efficient and effective guy, he might still be the target one for Drake May in this offense, right? They invested, yes, they invested in Stephon Diggs. They clearly made a big investment that Stephon Diggs is going to be their guy, right? But I think with the ACL concerns, him being older in age, right, and that room being pretty balanced, I think there are some reasonable doubts about him. All right, Dean, heading into our next guy here, DeVonta Smith. Why should we kind of avoid investing in a Super Bowl champion receiver who, seems like he's going at a pretty high price right now?
Yeah, I think it's kind of coming off, like you said, the Super Bowl win, fantastic year by the Eagles. But for Devonta Smith, he really just hasn't lived up to kind of the hype that was coming out of college, especially, winning a Heisman and such like that. But listen, he's in a offense with a lot of mouths to feed. We talked about Saquon in our last video to avoid but that's just based off historical facts that we don't think he'll repeat, right? But for Devonta Smith, is he going to get that target share? Is it something that we can rely on with Jalen Hurts throwing the ball? We've seen the times where his counterpart AJ Brown doesn't get the volume and he gets very upset on the sidelines, right? The price for Devonta Smith, sorry, is just not worth the juice taking him this year. Finish as wide receiver 28. It's just not something you want from your wide receiver two. Maybe it's a nice flex option, but I think this is where I'm just keeping my hands off at Devonta Smith and taking the gamble that all right, if he's really going to live up to it, whatever. But I just don't see it.
Yeah, and I mean with Devonta Smith, he had career lows last year in targets, catches, yards. Like he just was not productive at all last year in his time with Philly, and that's largely due to because Saquon Barkley was incredibly effective for this team and they relied on him heavily. I know we talked about Barkley as being a big time producer for this team, right? But he might regress this year, but that does not change anything for me in my mind with Devonta Smith. He is still the second option at receiver for a low passing volume offense, even though they have Kellen Moore and they want to throw the ball. And we were like, oh man, Kellen Moore and the slot receivers last year with Devonta. It never materialized, and this offense did not revolve around like Devonta like we expected. He will be on the field, he will be healthy, but the production is not enough for me to draft him within my top 24 receivers. That is why I'm all out on Devonta Smith. our last player here. I hate to do this, but it's Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers has won me some weeks, Dean, but he's also lost me a lot of weeks because he's incredibly volatile. Talk about him and why we should avoid him.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you're just not getting the consistency from him, and especially on a Ravens team where they've been begging for a wide receiver one for so long. He gets that label, but then you bring over Derrick Henry last year, and they really utilized the run game. It's kind of the same thing with the Eagles, right? It's like Derrick Henry just ate last year. He was phenomenal. He was great. But for Zay Flowers, it just seems like it just hasn't clicked for him at all. And even with the year after year, people are praising Lamar Jackson because he's getting better as a passer. But we're not seeing that from Zay Flowers as a receiver, right? Like Rashad Bateman got an extension because of the great year he had. We're just not getting that wide receiver production out of Zay Flowers. And I don't know if we're going to get that this year.
Yeah, I mean, here's the interesting part about Zay is like when you watch him on the field, like he looks good, like he makes
Mhm.
plays. He's his biggest downside is he drops so many passes. That's so frustrating for us fantasy owners. But the biggest thing is that it feels like right now, with him being priced within the top 24 receivers, we are drafting him at his ceiling. He's never finished above wide receiver 20 in fantasy football the last 2 years. They bring in Derrick Henry and they're going to completely rely on the run game, right? Even if Derrick Henry is not healthy, that's not going to change about the Baltimore Ravens. And before Henry, Zay Flowers had almost the same exact production. So, what is going to tell me that in year three, something is going to
Right.
completely change about an offense that has been the best in the league over the last 2 seasons? It's just not going to happen. Zay Flowers is going to be right around that range where you're drafting him, which provides no upside. And we don't go into drafts drafting without upside. And I think drafting Zay
Right.
Flowers is a big time mistake unless he slips. Like if he's your wide receiver three and your flex option, definitely go get this guy. But if you're relying on him to be potentially a wide receiver one or wide receiver two for your team, it's risky, incredibly risky to have Zay Flowers there. He's going to be volatile. He's not going to be higher than a wide receiver 20, and it's concerning. All right, Dean, there are five bust candidates at the wide receiver position. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button for more Blitz fantasy football content and let us know down below who you think is the biggest bust at the wide receiver position in 2025.